welcome everybody. Summer is here. We needed the rain, but maybe not all at the same time. But welcome to our regularly scheduled meeting, and thanks for coming on a rainy day. I don't know how many people. I'm seeing 10 on Zoom. I can't see who they are. So let's establish a quorum. I think I'm not seeing on the screen. Judy, are you? Judy and Peter Blanton.
Peter's on.
I'm on.
Judy Moore, by chance.
You should shut that door.
Thanks, Steve.
We have a quorum anyway.
We have a quorum. We have a quorum.
I don't see
anyway.
Judy, but
Yeah, but she should be on. But under short, Judy, we have everybody.
Yeah.
So quorum declared. As far as the minutes, those were circulated, and were there any comments or edits to those? Let me give again a shout out to Judy, even if she's not on the call. She does a great job on those, and we sure appreciate it. So are there no comments? Is there a motion to accept the minutes? Accept the minutes. Okay, Bob Kurth makes a motion to accept the minutes. Is there a second? Ken Sheelan seconds it. So all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously
We should
approved
make
minutes.
sure that we're probably through
Clark,
dinner.
what have we got? How are we doing in the bank?
Okay, our
6 o'clock,
bank account as of this morning was 5,948.
maybe 5:45 even.
And as we all know, we tend to front our money kind of front loaded, and then it's kind of what our burn rate is for the rest of the year. So we can't get too giddy about that. That may get us through the end of the year before we have our renewals. But
We've got our bill that I just paid with our credit card for $2,700.
so we'll be down to 2,500.
So, yeah,
Oh,
it's gonna get squeezed a little bit, yeah.
okay.
So we need to recruit more people before the end.
Okay, we're working on it. With that said, we're going to use a little different format with Lucia today than in the past. This came up with some feedback from you. We're going to have her speak maybe a little shorter period of time than has been our practice in the past with our guests during the presentation. She doesn't have a PowerPoint, which is a good thing. And then maybe 5-10 minutes for her to give us an update. And then we've had some pre-prepared questions that you saw that has been shared with Lucia in advance. And then we'll kind of take it from there with board members first. So a little bit about Lucia. She's been with the city about 11 years, and in her current role for about 5. Just learned at an update that she has 68 people in her area of responsibility. And I can tell you by looking at her weekly report, which is I don't know, 37 pages or something like that. Projects she and her team managers. I've said this before. I don't know how to keep track of this stuff. Lucy and I share a little bit in common. We both lived in the San Diego area for a period of time. She's originally from Arizona. And we try and work closely with her planners in trying to get better outcomes or good outcomes for our city. So Lucia, thank you for what you do. And please take away with your remarks, and then we'll get into questions.
Great, thank you. Would you like me to stand up or?
Whatever you prefer. It's a fisheye camera, so
Okay.
you can kind of
Okay,
do this as you would wish.
all right, I'll just stand up here. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So thank you for having me here, first of all. I love being out. I do have a mic. I do, love being out in the community, having this opportunity to come and talk and share about what we're doing and answer any questions that you guys may have. So thank you for this opportunity. So a few updates from the last time I was here, a few personnel updates. Our general manager, I believe last time I was here was Myra or Kevin. We had a little bit of turnover for a certain time. Now it's Allison Christie. I'm sure a lot of you have talked to her or have heard about her, but she started January of 24. She was in the position, started in the position January of 24. She came from the city of Northport as a planner, came as a chief planner, and then got into the general manager position January of 24. She's a certified planner, and she holds a bachelor's degree in environmental studies and a master's in urban planning. So she is a great asset to our department. If you guys haven't met her, I would really encourage you to meet her and to talk to her. We are currently recruiting all 4 planners, positions that we have. I know the planners are probably one of our most public-facing positions that we have. So we have actually, let me take that back because we just made an offer yesterday and just got approved. Rebecca Webster from the planning department has accepted the chief planner position in our department. So she will be on board later this month. So we're really excited to have her. And then we are currently recruiting for a senior planner and then 2 planner positions. So within hopefully the next couple months, you guys will see new faces and names that come up on the development applications that everyone follows.
Is it hard to find people these days?
It has been very difficult. Yes. We've had a challenge for a little while.
Because of affordability in Sarasota?
I think so. Yeah, we've had quite a few people from out of state, decline once they start looking at housing and things like that. So I think that's a big part of it. But I think we're on the right track now of getting our positions filled. So I'm feeling good about that. We're also recruiting for a senior arborist. Our current senior arborist is going to leave the middle of July. So we're currently recruiting for a senior arborist and a flood zone specialist. Our flood zone specialist currently will be leaving in January.
Yeah.
So luckily for that position, we have a good amount of time to recruit and train, because that's just like these other positions, very important positions.
Who's the senior arborist?
He's retiring, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Email
he's been
him.
with us for a little while. We're really sad
now
to see him leave, but
but
I believe that he's going to retire. He has grandkids and he wants to focus
I
on
guess
that.
I can just let them know. Go.
Another personnel
Like,
update, my assistant, some of you guys have met her, Angie McLeod. She's now our budget
Well, I will, but
coordinator.
I hate
So
to
Janicia Ruiz is now my assistant. She used to
tell
be in code
everybody,
compliance.
send
We love to
everybody.
promote from within, so that's great additions. They're both really great at their positions.
Her out.
Yeah, but
And
do
then
I-
another update we have is our physical location
No,
moved from
you
the
do
annex
it
building
online.
in the City Hall complex to
Just
the
online.
new building that we refer to the one-stop shop
When this
just
gal,
north of
I'm
City
gonna,
Hall.
I can do
So
that.
we are there in the new building. We are very happy to be there. We have meeting room space and space that we actually, didn't have in the annex. And it's a lot more comfortable, I think, for the public too, to come and meet with us and apply for permits and, just do work with us. So we're very happy about that. So that's all the updates that I prepared.
Okay, good. Well, shall we start? It's a nice segue into the first question. When you spoke to us a couple of years ago, we talked of as far as a conduit into the city, so as to speak, that it was your request or the direction that the planner be the face for the city. So if residents, the community had comments on a specific project, that would be the contact point, and then they would project manage, so as to speak, to other resources. Is that still the case?
Yes, that's still the case.
Okay. I think, something you said about the recruiting 4 people is Tom Serdarsky, if I'm pronouncing his name, he's in an acting consulting role.
Correct. Yeah. Luckily, we were able to get him because he was familiar with our
So what I'm
process.
trying to do is get in my mind a transition from the projects we have now. We have Amy, Tom,
Mhm.
and are those, talk to me about the existing planners.
Okay, perfect. So we do have Tom under contract. We don't have an end date. Whenever we get fully staffed, we will have him until then. Amy is moving to Detroit sometime in June. We believe June 11th, next Wednesday, will be her last day. It might be a couple weeks after that. So come the middle of this month to the end of this month, we'll have Rebecca Webster, and we're currently working on a transition plan as far as, what projects Rebecca's going to get. Of course, she has to get trained. Allison's lifting a lot of the load. Tom is taking some of the projects. So we're currently working on a transition, and those weekly updates, reports does have the case planner listed. So if there's ever a question, you can always look at that to see who the case planner is.
I have to ask, if you have when you are fully staffed,
Mhm.
you feel that you are at a staffing level appropriate for the workload?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and these have been open positions, or are these new positions? Some of these?
The fourth planner is a new position that we filled for, it was right during this last hurricane season. She moved from New Jersey and then moved back right after Milton. I think it scared her, yeah. So that position is the new position that we haven't really filled.
Okay.
I would say.
Does anybody want to embroider on or have any further elements to that first question? I think I've been an advocate for you
Mhm.
being appropriately staffed for a
Mhm.
couple of years now. So
Mhm.
happy because the training period.
I could probably do this while this is on.
It's a pretty steep
Mhm.
learning curve, and it's critical information. So
Mhm. Definitely.
happy to hear what you said.
Definitely. And if I can add one more thing. So one thing I'm looking at, because we have had a challenge filling that fourth position, is having a junior planner or a planner assistant to kind of, we have some zoning staff that are interested in becoming a planner, but they're just not qualified yet. So that could be a stepping stone to keep, that knowledge in-house and to have that longevity. And so hopefully that can help as well.
Pipeline and fail.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
The second question was keeping DSCA informed. I snoop around and look at your weekly report, and I mean that in a good way, but what policies and procedures do you have for the planner, their obligation, for lack of a better word, to reach out to the neighborhoods or when projects come along or when DRC, at certain milestones, it would seem beneficial that the neighborhood maybe be CC'd on some stuff.
Mhm.
Jackie,
Talk to us about how you see that working.
So the case planner contacts the neighborhood association president or contact person once an application is deemed complete, so before the technical review starts. And so the purpose of that is to introduce a project, introduce
in your
themselves.
first group right now, you have twosome.
And then following up to that, we are going to start sending the DRC comment memos to the same association. I learned that wasn't happening, and that should be happening. So hopefully that's a way to keep the associations, informed whenever it does go to DRC. And I'm going to make sure that DSCA is included in that. But I would really suggest you can get on the mailing list for the DRC agendas and the planning board agendas. And that's a really great way to keep track of projects that are coming through. And on that agenda, there's a link to the application and the comments. So I use that all the time myself as far as a resource.
One observation is I think others can track things as they go through the DRC, but when there's partial sign off has occurred, then it's kind of a black hole, because there's final discussions that administratively that we don't have visibility to. And then as it goes into request for building permits, there is other than you get lucky. You start looking at building permits issued in the last week.
Mhm, mhm.
What's a good outcome? What's a good way? What's an appropriate way for neighborhood involvement as DRC is winding down and building permit is getting considered?
Well, I would say there's a couple options. One is that weekly report, which that same information is on our GIS map. So it updates weekly for each project that we're working on. So you could see weekly, how it's progressing. Another option is, again, that DRC comment memo at the very bottom has any updates on partial sign-off projects when they get full sign-off. And then thirdly, once a project is approved, property owners within 500 feet get notified, which we can add on to that, notifying the neighborhood association as well once that decision is made. Because that's one thing that we're not doing right now. It's just the mailing that's going out. I am open for suggestions. I love, getting suggestions. So if anything,
Well,
you have any ideas?
to be blunt, there's a DRC approval, and then one would hope when the building permit gets issued, it's consistent with what's been approved. And I'm saying if there was a whoopsie or some, for example, landscape plans. And I don't know how that's, certain understandings in the DRC and what's approved. And then, and we all know the story about renderings and what is rendered, like on the view, and what happened. I'm just looking for a way to, and I'm interested in also tracking the approximate timing on stuff. So.
Yeah, and that I would say that really varies because we have some site plans that never go forward, some site plans that submit their building permit the next day. So that's really hard to tell as far as the tracking of the time and that. I would say that we have the case planner reviews the building permit to keep that consistency. So they do match it with what was approved. We do have the ability to or the applicant has the ability to make some minor modifications, and that's in the code. So, there is that flexibility in there. Anything major would have to go back through the same process as the original approval.
And site plans are supposed to sunset in, is it 2 years?
Yes.
Now, I know storm events and acts of God or stuff, but the normal policy, I know some have sat for 3-4 years before they moved ahead. And I think the developer is constantly asking for an exception, but your intended policy is to try and stick to 2 years?
Yes, the zoning code allows for 2 years before it expires. The Florida state statute, though, has extended it because of storms and things like that we have no control over. So that's where you get those extensions up to 4 years and even more.
Anything else on that general area? Okay. The DRC process review. I was part of, and I think you have a group of 8 or 9 folks who ostensibly represent aspects. Kelly's on that group. Almost 2 months ago to kick that off. And can you talk to us about your goals, the intent, and then where we're at?
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to talk about this. So the DRC site plan review, or the DRC process and the site plan requirements haven't been looked at for a while. I think 2009 was the last time it was looked at holistically. We have done quite a few enhancements and improvements in the last few years, but it hasn't been looked at holistically. So that's what we're doing right now. The goal is to improve the process for both, our residents, citizens, our community, as well as, the applicants that we deal with. That's kind of the main general goal, to improve the process. So we started off, we have 2 stakeholder groups. We have a community stakeholder group and I would say developer stakeholder group, for lack of better words. The 2 groups were established with a previous city manager and myself. We wanted a group that is a broad representation of the city. So that's how those two groups were, that's how we came up with the two groups. We had an intro meeting to kind of lay out, the goal of the project, the code requirements as they are now, the process as they are now. We're going to do an online survey. We're going to send an online survey in about a week to gather written feedback on our process, our requirements, the experience. There's going to be questions about, input. Is there enough? Is there not enough? Things like
Who does the
that.
survey go to?
Both of our groups.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So this, the online meeting was the two groups, and then the survey will be the two groups. And then after that, we'll have meetings with the same two groups. We're going to have individual meetings to continue to gather information, gather input, gather suggestions, and then one meeting all together to kind of talk about those. And then after that, I'll, put together some input from what I've heard and present it to our city manager. And then at that point, I'll have to get direction from the city manager. But I do plan on going back to the commission to give them an update and ask for direction, or, we'll have to see what happens at that point.
If you look at what you know about the process and what you've heard and what you even learned in that first meeting, do you sort of know what the 2 or 3 key changes that need to be made to make this thing better, or general areas of improvement?
That's a good question. It really depends who you talk to, because right now I'm getting the extreme opposites. So no, I don't know. Yeah.
Reflect on what those streams are.
Yes. So one, aspect is that we require too much information. It takes too long, too many details, things like that. So we've gotten examples of typically what the county requires, which is usually just a 1-page concept plan. So there's, push for just having that be the requirement to get approval, and then everything else be administrative. And then there's the other side where, more involvement or more time spent, more community engagement and things like that. So kind of those two aspects of it. Yeah.
Well, the elephant in the room, one of the elephants is community workshops.
Mhm.
And DSCA, at the time, the attainable housing bonus ordinances were being implemented 12, 14 months ago,
Mhm.
had, I'm going to use the word compromise, but okay, that although we wanted community workshops more broadly, we said, what if we start with required community workshops when the bonus density benefit is asked for?
Mhm.
And the rationale is because of the intensity, 4x, and I'm talking about downtown, 4x the intensity of, and I live in a location with a lot kind of next door. I guess I asked the question, you mean something could be approved administratively on that with 200 dwelling units,
Mhm.
4 times the intensity, and there's no opportunity formally for the community workshop. It was said that failed 4-1, if I'm not mistaken, city commission, or it never went ahead because it was part of a package. Nobody was going to blow up the attainable bonus for that reason. But the argument against that was it was discriminatory, for lack of a better word, that it was it was biased against attainable units. I make the point that it's differentiating. Compartmentalizing is different than discrimination. In fact, a recent project, Peter and we advocated for more attainable in a particular unit. So, do you have a view on this? I mean, community workshops broadly are on the table and are now being discussed amongst the commissioners, which Commissioner Kelly Aldrich brought it up, and I don't remember if Jen did or not. It was actually came up at the chamber meeting this morning incorrectly. So it's a common as an issue. Does your group have a view on this?
We don't. We don't. I have heard that you can't, and I believe our city attorney's opinion is that because of Senate Bill 250, you can't add that as a requirement right now. But as far as my department goes, because we implement the code, you know, so if a community workshop is required before, during, after, it's just the process that will follow. My personal belief, I love community involvement, you know, so the more we can get out there, the better. I do have some ideas of involving the community once we get fully staffed more, even though it's not, you know, it could be not a requirement, but, you know, I do have some ideas of that engagement.
Because I think it is the view of DSCA that ultimately community workshops save time, you know, done at the appropriate point. They are conducted by the developer now. The cost was estimated by Joel Freeman at $5,000, which is, you know, a super rounding error in the grander scheme of things. And it continues, I think. I hope I'm speaking for us, that community workshops save time, money, effort, and heartburn.
Lucia,
Does anybody
can you hear me?
add to that? Or?
Shit. Can you hear me? No.
My own personal feeling is that the earlier your workshop is, the better, because the developer hasn't spent a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of resources developing a plan that somebody asks them to change later on and causes more. My weatherman is telling. And so what I did with the 777 South Palm project was that as soon as I found out about it, I got in touch with Kinley Horn, and who eventually put me in touch with Unilog, the developer. And after the DRC meeting this morning, I had a chance to sit down with the two principals of Unilog, and we had about an hour's discussion about things that people are interested in the community, what they would like. I talked about trees, for example. And I thought it was very helpful, but I think the farther into the process you get, the more difficult it gets, the more resistance you create, both on the part of the developer and the public. And that's not good. It's not good for us as a community to have that happen. So I would encourage you, if this develops into a thing, that it be done early, as early in the process as feasible.
You know, one thing, Ken, at the master plan committee meeting, when I don't know if you watched when they were doing the historical review of, I thought that was really, really interesting. One thing that seems to have not changed in 25 years is Duane, and I wasn't around, talked about the pedestrian experience, the public realm as being central. And I think what we're saying is that hasn't changed. And focus on right-of-way treatments and getting into that, and the problematic elements when utility lines need to be relocated or we're kind of dead. So the frustration, Will, is I think we may all want the same thing of better public realms, better trees, treatments, reasonably, you know, sidewalks and that kind of thing. But in totality here, because of the complexity of, say, utility lines, we get, it's not an integrated, holistic view of things. And it appears to us at times that nobody's in charge. That it's not exactly your department, it's not exactly planning's, it's not exactly public works or utilities. What do you have, I hope I'm making sense. Do you have thoughts on how things can be a better whole?
as far as, because if we don't, like, let's say, for example, if a utility line is in a sidewalk and you can't plant a tree there because of the utility line, if we don't have anything requiring a developer to move that, then we can't make them move that, you know, if we don't have any code requirements to do that. So I think that's where our hands are tied as well.
Well, but at the same time, that developer may be asking for adjustments.
Mhm.
Let me use the words horse trading.
Mhm.
I mean, the adjustments are discretionary, and you may approve adjustment to pick a number, 20%. But is it not reasonable to think about if a developer's asking for 3 adjustments and to make, you know, things work for trees, we need to move the water line, we have a little understanding, shall we say?
I would say I have to stick to my criteria. And my criteria, I can't step away from my criteria. So because I see an improvement here, I can't hold their adjustments until that improvement gets done.
Is
If
that
I can
a
tie it to the
legal issue?
criteria, yes.
But if you have the I mean, it seems to me for a developer to get people to be on board with their project, the more they got the community involved up front,
Mhm.
makes the project go easier where we're getting, 4-to-1 or 5 total improvement
Mhm.
of it, because they cooperated up front. And it
Mhm.
seems like to me that and the developer is actually, it benefits the developer to get on board earlier than later.
Yeah,
Can I
agree.
give you an example
agree.
of how that's a good idea this morning? When I was talking to the principals, they were talking about things they would like to do. They would love to do the project. And one of them turned out to be an art project. And since I'm on the board of the Arts and Cultural Alliance, we have now started a conversation with him about what he wants to do and how we might be able at the Alliance to help with
Mhm.
the project. So, it might add some pizzazz to a project
Mhm.
if the developer can talk to us early on and say, well, this is one of my funny ideas I have about this project.
Mhm.
See if we can't help make it happen.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, great points.
Okay, the next item is, and I'm going to use, like you and I were talking earlier, the federal grant for the Boulevard of the Arts and 10th project. Apparently the check has arrived. I mean, it maybe is escrow with FDOT, but the federal government has issued the check and it's in somebody's bank account. So the Boulevard of the Arts and 10th project are going to be moving forward. On what timetable, I don't know. I did talk to Nick Patel the other day, and what I want to focus on is we've got 10th is all east of 41,
Mhm.
the work. Boulevard of the Arts is east and west of 41. And may we talk about just west of Boulevard of the Arts,
Mhm.
because that gets more complicated. I think arguably that stretch is one of the more beautiful streets
Mhm.
currently in the city, and I don't think we want to mess that up.
Mhm.
We have one park condo project moving ahead. We have Hyatt. I think you just confirmed the rumor I held that demo may start there in September on the Hyatt garage or whatever portion of it. Nick, as I understand it, the developer is to pay for the complete street right-of-way improvements at both One Park and Hyatt.
That's my understanding. Mhm.
So that's good news, right? The rest of the money can be used that way. I don't, there are some concerns, for lack of a better word, between the exact what's coming down the pike. And we're curious of what approval mechanisms, how does that work with the DRC or with the landscaping component of it? In total, for example, we could, 2 different site plans or 3 different buildings occurring.
Mhm.
I'm saying this badly, but there are some concerns about the treatment there. How are you folks involved in this process?
As far as making sure the streetscape matches with these new projects, or I'm not
I
really
guess
understanding
to
the
some,
question.
I'm looking for a vision of the street,
Mhm.
not, just so we have the whole is considered along with the pieces.
Mhm. So it's my understanding that the engineering division is managing the design of the street and making sure that the projects meet that design together and, with the 60% plans or however far they are along with it. So our responsibility would be to make sure that engineering is okay with what is being proposed and making sure that that matches with the plan, the overall plan.
Okay, I'm not as familiar with, the exact plans. Patrick, anybody have any questions, comments on that?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a lot about saying on that. And first of all, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for the work of your department and especially trying to do work when you don't have staff. So yes, there's an outstanding question is what is the status of the site plan
For the Hyatt?
for the Hyatt
Mhm.
based upon the streetscape that is proposed to remove 100% of the trees and replace it with 20% that really ends up being a 10% replacement and is going to take 25, 35, 40 years before it'll grow back to where the residents have the same canopy coverage and tree benefits as specified in the comprehensive plan that says, here's all the benefits you get from trees. So why would the public have to be deprived of 20 plus years of foliage benefits according to a site plan that is based upon engineering department, not the developer? The developer isn't proposing that. So how is that going to get resolved?
Good question. I'm actually still looking into your email, and that's why I haven't responded back yet. But the site plan is on hold right now. We did hear from the applicant that they're looking at making some adjustments to the parking. I don't think it's going to impact the right of way or anything that we're talking about here, but that's why it's kind of on hold right now while I look into this. But my understanding right now, and I still, would like a little bit more time to look into it. But as far as it's kind of a combination of, the streetscape following the plan, the complete street plan, and also some of those trees not being healthy. So our arborist does have an opinion as far as the removal and the replacement and the benefit of that. So I'm still gathering that information, but I think in this case, it's kind of it's a two-way, or it's for two reasons. One, that streetscape plan, that's much larger than just this project. And then also the health and the longevity of some of those trees that are there now.
I heard those words that the trees were old. And removing something because it's old doesn't sit well with many seniors in Sarasota, especially for what, 40 or 50-year-old live oaks that live to be 250 years old. Okay, so those live oaks on Boulevard of the Arts, from a live oak perspective, do not appear to be old. Now, whether any of those trees, all of those trees, if they need to be moved to make the sidewalk wider, the palms could simply be picked up, moved over, new holes dug, amended to soil put in, and replanted. All of those trees could be replanted, be healthy and create that without having to remove them and put in 3-inch trees, saplings. So that's where the concern is, that it's a wholesale destruction and it's a 20, 30-year growback.
Yes.
So that's concerns.
So
We'll
we've
need to address that.
And I think from an overarching standpoint, as we talked about what a beautiful street this is, and we are going to have it canyoning, for lack of a better word, beautiful park. So, and it's probably the last development's amongst the last in the quay. So we got one chance to get it right, and we've got some time to do it. So I think we would request let's work together on this. I think there's some solutions.
Yes, no, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I am looking at it, but I would say that we do have pretty strict criteria for tree removal, so it being old is not one criteria. It has to be diseased, and sometimes you can't see that, but I will get back to you with more details, and, we'll see what we can do.
According to the site plan application, none of those live oaks were listed as anything other than good condition. None of the royal palms were listed in anything other than good. There wasn't anything listed. There was a few other ones listed as poor, but they weren't the ones in the right of way that really add to that. So that's where I think there's an area for review. Just real quickly on your other issues about updates to the DRC process and so forth, it is still two big problems. One, to find out once a site application is approved, it then goes into the construction planning process and staging plans. We're told now that we still have to go to the city clerk to request staging plans and to request MOTs. They're not available on the website. So I was told that when I called Development Services, I was told we had to go through city clerks. So if that's changed, that would be great to have something updates telling us how we can receive the full copies of the complete staging plan, not the cursory information that's on the GIS. The complete staging plans with maps and narrators, and then all details on MOTs. Those should be available for downloading from the website, but they're still not available. We're told we have to go to the clerk's office.
So our permitting division intakes all the building permits and staging plans. The clerk has nothing to do with building permits. So you would contact the permitting division, for staging plans. But I will look into other options for this to make it a little bit easier.
Could it not be made available on eDocs on the graphics?
That's for development applications and other types of applications, not the building permit. So I'll have to see how that transition would work.
Silos, everything's being siloed. I'm saying from the public perspective, and it'd be available on the website.
And I'll look into that.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just one point about the whole things along the Boulevard of the Arts? That is, we're spending, what, $500 million developing the bay? And this is a key part to the entry of the bay. And I don't know if there's, some extra added, well, we're only zoning because we can do a 3-inch tree, and that's what the rules say. If there's a way to go in and say, this is a special project, or this is a special situation where we can be a little more grand to match what they've done literally across the street and what they've done to develop the bay, because they're wanting it to look beautiful from the get-go. And that same kind of effort needs to be done across the street. So that is something that, I won't say an extraordinary thing, but, we're putting all of this money into developing the bay, and to have one side of the street look one way and the other side of the street looks completely different does not make any sense. And it should be kind of included as a full-on package. And I think that's a reason for a variation of the rules. There's a rule that says you can only replace it with a 3-inch tree. I'm just using that as an example.
Elsewhere, this has been great. Are there any final, please, I hope not, comments, questions, observations?
On Zoom? Anyone on Zoom?
Do we have any?
Raise their hand on Zoom?
Can you hear me?
Is there, Peter Blanton, a board member, is on Zoom. Peter, you have any comments?
Well, I'll make it fast. I have 2 comments.
You switch to gallery view?
Can you hear me?
Can you put it on gallery to see who's on Zoom?
Peter, can you hear me? You can't hear me.
Peter, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So 2 comments. One for Lucia. One is you may want to think about using AI if you don't already use it. It does seem like a lot of your work is like paralegal work, which is increasingly being used, relying on AI. The second comment is, I know you're listening to developers and community organizers. But I think you should also look at what the neighboring towns and cities in Florida do. So I have done a survey, which I sent to the city commission and also the ad hoc committee, the downtown Sarasota 2020 ad hoc committee, looking at the use of administrative approvals in about 15 other towns and cities in Florida. So I will send that to you, but I think we don't have to always reinvent the wheel. We can look what other people do in Florida. And we stand alone, by the way, in the broad nature, the broad application of administrative review. As you'll see when I send it to you, every other town and city says, well, if it's more than 50 units, if it's greater than X height, if it involves something beyond the code, if it involves density housing, et cetera, then it has to have public hearings and public approvals. I'll send you that, but that's, you know, our town doesn't look at data. It doesn't look at every other city and town and county in Florida to see what they do. It's frustrating, but it's out there and it's easy to access. But I'll send it to you. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. I would love to see that. Can I mention something?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I definitely agree with not reinventing the wheel and using AI. We're starting to use AI citywide. We're going to have a co-pilot pretty soon here, hopefully. We did look at other jurisdictions as far as the site plan requirements. So I do plan on having that be a part of this whole, package, seeing what other people do, talking to other directors stuff around the state. So I would appreciate any research that you've done, but I, trust me, do not want to reinvent any wheels that I don't have to. So thank you for that.
I just really throw out there, Lucy, I just sent it to you with Peter Blank.
Oh, thank you. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
folks, I think we're kind of out of time. Lucia, we certainly appreciate your time and
Thank you.
I hope the format worked for you. It was a different way of doing it, and we appreciate it. We've got some follow-up. I'm sure I will get some cards and letters, some suggestions. So we appreciate your time. And,
thank you.
And so what you and your group try and do, and we want to be a positive part of that process.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thanks. You can stick around. We've got wine at the end.
Congratulations.
Moving ahead, new business, Jamie, what do we have? Do we have?
Yeah, we had an application for a new platinum member, Accentra Insurance. Hopefully I'm not butchering that too bad. They did say they can't be here today, but would be here probably at the next meeting.
So let's defer there, and do we want to, how do we want to handle this?
My recommendation is that we would make a motion to accept them as a new platinum member and then let them do their speech at the next meeting. That's okay.
So
with everybody
moved.
else.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Welcome,
How do we
folks.
find these people?
They found us. Yeah, they just came to
It's
us.
good marketing.
Good. Clark, there's another $700. Maybe.
Yeah, I think we got.
That'll get us through Friday.
We got a check.
Yeah, they've already paid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I need to accept them.
All right, moving ahead, we've got about 40 or 50 minutes. Downtown Sarasota master plan status. Jamie, you gave the update.
It's Ken's turn.
It's Ken's turn.
Yep.
Okay, anything for us?
Well, the last two meetings have occurred in the last week and a half. And they were taken up mainly with familiarizing the committee with the history of the development of downtown master plans. This will be, the update will be the third one. And I think the committee members who weren't familiar, there are a lot of young people on the documents. And they don't know the history, so I had to sit through that. Anyway. But it went very well. They actually brought in Molly Hardeman, Bill Merrill, David Smith was part of it. There were some other people from the community who offered their insights on how things went. And then the more recent meeting, which was Monday, we talked about, Steve Cover made presentations and some other people from the staff talked about the public art plan, the Sarasota in Motion plan, the economic development plan. So the committee has some background. Next meeting, we will deal with the process for acquiring a consultant to actually write the plan. That's it.
Good. All right. Bob, what on the Condo Association survey plans? Do you have a Reader's Digest version?
Well, Reader's Digest version, we were talking earlier before the meeting about that. What we're looking at doing is sending out trying to get more involvement from the board, not our board, but the condo boards of our members. And what we're looking at doing to try and support the participation in the survey is send out a mailing to them in 3 different stages. One, people that participated in the last survey, ones that didn't participate in the last survey, and then new people and new buildings that we don't know about where we could send out. And we're working up a plan to do a mailing directly to those board members of those buildings versus an email or something like that gets, I don't know how many emails you get. A lot of people delete them. Getting something in directed to a board member at these different buildings, at least get them to open it and look at what the advantages of the survey, and also enlighten them to DSCA. A lot of board members, they change over annually in a lot of the buildings, and a lot of people the building may be a member of DSCA, but they don't know what DSCA does. So kind of introduce them both to DSCA and then participating in the survey.
Timeline wise, what?
Timeline, we're trying to do it over the summer. The problem being is that we're obviously at the summer in Sarasota there's a lot of people that aren't here, and that's the only worry, but trying to get it done starting soon over the summer so we can have something by September.
So Bob, just so I understand, you're gonna send a letter to a group of people who have responded, who haven't responded, and you're gonna tell them about DSCA, and you're gonna tell them that a survey is coming their way, and we really want your participation.
Right.
How many are there?
There's basically 5 board members for each of the buildings.
How many buildings?
We have 30.
Well, we have 35 current
We have
members.
35 current members, and maybe there's another, half dozen new buildings that we.
So let's say there's 40. What if every board member called 6 and explained what the hell was going on?
The problem I think that we have with that is that getting the contact information for that, and frankly, it's like me, I don't even answer the phone if I don't know who it is. So cold calling doesn't work anymore, unless you can get an introduction to it. Where a letter, if you're on a board for a building, you maybe get 5 or 6 letters a month directed, but if you put the name of the person / board member, they'll at least, I think, open it. Plus the fact we've got a really nice letterhead, so people will see the Condo Association, at least open it up and take a look at it. That's my quote for it.
Okay, city update. Kathy, on the city manager search, city's looking to retain a search firm and consulting. I think we said anticipate 6 to 8 months. Boca Raton's looking for a city manager. We're not the only ones out there looking for city managers these days, so we better be good, and they better be good. So that's where exactly that stands. I don't know, but it's ongoing. One thing, taxable value. I sent this around today. I just received it. The taxable value of from our appraiser's office was up 6.1% from last year. So that is the estimate currently that will be used for budgeting purposes. final number, as I understand it, comes out in mid-July, but last year, was it 9%, Commissioner? Something like that, and the year before, I think 13%. So still, according, that's the valuation. How much of that is new construction? I don't know. How much of that is in the TIF district? I don't know yet, but stay tuned.
What's stunning about that is the difference in the evaluations between Sarasota and Northport.
Right.
Because we're a hell of a lot more valuable than Northport is, which is a bigger city.
Right.
Significantly bigger.
Okay. All right. Committee reports, Ken. Performing Arts Center, Van Weissel. Do you have
Well, the
anything?
last couple of meetings have been spent working on their final report, and each member of the committee is contributing to that. They're writing a portion of that. They've made significant progress on agreement amongst themselves on a number of their conclusions. They're still working on their recommendations, but I think it's going to come along pretty quickly.
Okay, so that's mid to late July.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the SPAC people are supposed to come back in late July, August?
To the city. You have to ask the city.
Okay.
Do you know?
I don't.
See?
All right.
Yeah.
Associate events,
Okay.
Jamie?
No, I don't really have an update other than the next workshop will be on October 16th and it will be at the Garden Club. But we'll be working on starting the planning process in a couple weeks. Nothing new as of yet.
Yeah, I think directionally, the way we're headed is condo regulations, condo requirements, what's changed. It seems like there's a growing, increasing, and we did that a year or two ago, so it's.
Yeah, that was an idea.
Right. So,
It'd be a good tie-in for the survey as well.
yep, okay. Peter, on health and safety, homeless, I know you sent me around something, I didn't distribute
Let me
that.
just hit the highlights for since the last meeting. We're continuing to make progress in establishing this program. And we're getting to the point where we have it now coordinated with the homeless committee as part of the homeless. And we're working towards having the City Watch program be a standalone activity under the board, under safety and health. So that's the direction that we're going. I'm presently coordinating several activities of recruiting volunteers. 1350 was next on our schedule. They had to postpone their board meeting. I talked to their property manager yesterday or today, can't remember. And we're scheduled probably the third week of June, somewhere in there, for a board meeting where I'll get a chance to explain to that board what we're doing and getting their help to recruit volunteers. In the meantime, we have half a dozen volunteer walkers going around, and they are reporting. In the last 2 weeks, they've reported 8 different incidents through the Click to Fix program. They use our Gmail system that I've set up for them. They send it to Click to Fix, and then it gets distributed, and it's working so that there's a loop back to what they're seeing in the program and what's happening with regard to their report. Most of these are around quality of life issues like broken sidewalk I almost tripped on, things like that. And that department that's getting them is getting back, and several of the items in the last 2 weeks that were reported have been fixed. I mean, they sent a crew out and fixed it, which is really gratifying from 2 points of view. One, they get it and they take it serious. 2, they're telling us what they did. We don't have to go and inspect it, anybody do anything at that site last week. And so I'll be giving you a report with the resolutions probably the next meeting. Now, on the homeless side, let me just take a minute that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, has issued a report. It's called the Healthy People 2030 report, in which they have 357 core or measurable objectives, as well as developmental and research objectives that I've come across. And several of those are directed toward homelessness. And I thought it was interesting, the stuff that they're putting together, and one of their core efforts is to decrease or lessen the housing instability problem. HHS is saying, one of the big reasons we have so many homeless people is we don't have any homes. And I think that was really good for them to recognize, especially in this administration, that maybe there's a chance to encourage communities to and put out some information and money on housing instability. Florida's homeless population has fluctuated, as we saw. Governor DeSantis was in town Monday to sign 2 bills. I think it's SB 306 and 2. Anyway, he signed them on Monday, 322 and 306. But anyway, that is to, they're being 606. They're being referred to as anti-squatting bill to help remove people who have taken over a property, supposedly only commercial. But I noticed that in presenting this, that the slip was made a couple of times about doing this in commercial and residential. So we're trying to get some clarification from my representative, who is Fiona McFarland, as to just exactly what this was. But what I picked up was the use of statistics, because Governor DeSantis' press release, in order to talk about this a little bit more, it appeared in the press that there's been a 49% increase in homelessness in the state of Florida between the years 2021 and 2024. Well, I could have told them that in 2021, we didn't have any reports. We had very poor reports. So we only reported a low number, and we reported a high number in 2024. And when you figure the percentage high to low, you come up with 49%. The numbers in Sarasota between those two, 2021, we reported 341 people unsheltered. 2024, we reported 478, which is a 13% increase. Understanding that in 2021, we didn't do a very good job in Sarasota because of the COVID. People couldn't go out. You want to go count, you can't go face to face with the people, etc. So the 21 year, whenever you see that, somebody quoting that either as, oh, we've had a great reduction in 21, or we've had a great increase since 21, it's because the figures are getting manipulated. Actually, I used for my basis 2017, because 2017 was the year we really got serious in Sarasota. We had the Susan Butchot report come in. We did a number of things. And in 2017, we had 877 homeless people counted. And if you look at 2024, there's 478. We've had a reduction in those of 45% in the homeless population. Actual people in services and so forth. So we're trying to take that information, get it out, and then I think Bob, you mentioned that making sure people know what we're doing. As I go up to the boards and meet with them, my first 2 slides are what is DSCA and what do we do and how do we help you?
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, they want to know what we can do for them.
So, and then when we start talking about, and we've been active with the city in working on the homeless, and I can give them reports like this, they reluctantly shake their heads, usually yes, yeah, but.
You're supposed to nod, not shake.
The last thing I want to say is we have a new Dee Jones coming up in June. In June, Dee has got a great opportunity to put her life in happiness. And her name's Shelley Legoski, and David and I are going to be.
I'm listening to talk about homelessness.
Dee's coordinating that meeting, so there should be a smooth transition in the hot teams and what's being done there. And DS.
When I went downstairs,
can I just mention one thing?
Three of
It's
them
not a
were
homeless
crying.
issue, but it is health and safety issues.
Just wait.
downtown.
And then I will,
On Monday night, when I was driving to the
like, watch.
meeting of the Downtown Master Plan Update Committee, I was going down South Palm Avenue, and there was a group of about 6 young men and women, late teens, early 20s, having a fist fight in the middle of South Palm Avenue. And there was blood in the street, and there were people in their cars parked away from, avoiding it. You know, they just stopped and waited till it was over. I drove right up to it and blared my horn and laid on the horn until they broke up. But I contacted Pat Robinson about it. I've seen these kids around downtown just wandering around before. Are you aware of any problem with young kids having fights and accosting people? Giving them
Only
trouble?
very, very seldom of the younger population, we get more reports of inappropriate skateboarding, inappropriate riding of the new e-bikes
Well,
down
these
sidewalks.
were having a boy-girl fight.
I didn't know.
Well, I think it's
Nobody
important.
Okay,
Because
so-
if this gets out of hand, we're all in trouble.
So noted. Edit? Okay, SPD cameras, just one thing on that, Jim Long is here. We'll recall from the annual meeting where Chief Touche talked about the SPD camera initiative and the real-time operations center. There was, the people from the Rock have met with Jim Long and the board at the Mark as a potential, I'm going to call it pilot, you know, the ability to tie into their camera system and for, I mean, not surveillance, but for monitoring kind of systems. So they're behind the scenes, there's some work going on this that's positive, and maybe at the end of the meeting, Jim can have a word about that, but I don't know exactly where it'll lead, but they did do a presentation to the board, the Mark. Special events ordinance. I was with a group of you on Zoom the other day, and where that stands is the Jennifer Jorgensen, the person in charge of special events, is moving toward trying to get a ordinance in the next 4 to 6 weeks. In a first reading, they've got a red line version. They're revising the red line version based on some resident input. And I've gotten involved, I don't know, I guess I'm the masochist of trying to meet individually with some individuals with an interest in this from 4 different buildings, the Mark, 1350, Jewel, and Bay Plaza, wherever.
Is this a noise issue?
This is special events. Special
The
events
noise-
says,
I mean, noise is the.
no, I mean, it's kind of multi-pronged. I don't have time to go into it now. What I intend to do is, you know, get something in writing for consideration. The principal concern areas, if you will, is what is the frequency of these, and then what is the duration? Like if a Cinco de Mayo event is 3 days, right? Or there were 5 special events within a 3-week period. That's not sounding particularly reasonable to me. So it's frequency, duration, the sound level permitted. Staff is recommending a reduction of 100 to 85. But the question is, where are you measuring that from and what times and stuff? And then the other is the notice period. What is the appropriate notice? And I'm going to use the word buy-in or awareness of the plans on this. So trust me on this, if you will. I will bring back for further discussion and so forth. One of the issues is some of the boards of the various buildings have yet to take a position, if they ever will, and how is there a middle ground where I think we all agree we want a vibrant but sustainable city, for lack of a better word. So this is in the works. Now, Jennifer Jorgensen will be our guest speaker next month. So we'll have, that'll be at an opportune time to engage with her and see where things are. It's frankly, it's complicated, but it is moving ahead. Legislative affairs, we talked about that last month, and I'm making the executive decision not to move ahead with that for the time being. I've had some discussions with Bob Neuhaus. Let me just say, it's not the right time. We've got enough on our plates now to add yet one more initiative. God knows how we're going to fit it into agendas, even with the best of intentions. Now, Michelle Coburn, of one of our associate members, will be our guest speaker in August, talking about condo laws and what came out of Tallahassee recently. So, you know, I see the concept for this legislation affairs group as being a really good one, and one where DSCA and I are kind of missing the boat. But now ain't the time unless if I need 2 interns. So we'll kick the can down the road on this. There's ongoing discussions. We see it as a important element that maybe we're not totally fulfilling, and I get the memo. So, Transportation Committee, there was they are going to be updating the transportation chapter of the comprehensive plan. And there was a kickoff. Ken was there, Peter was there about a week ago. And yeah, that's what I said. Ken and Peter were there. And Ken, can you summarize briefly what happened in your impressions?
Well, there were representatives of various parts of the community, and it fell apart. There were representatives of various parts of the community, but what impressed me about the discussion was that the comments we got from the individuals representing the various parts seemed very consistent with what the city is planning to do with complete streets, for example. You raised the issue of on-demand transit, that sort of thing. But I didn't really come up with any new ideas. I didn't, except your idea, which was, let's get something started. Let's get something going. Let's do something instead of just talking.
Yeah, the timetable for developing this, what the original one now is 237 pages, is 1.5 years. So I think my viewpoint is, and hundreds of thousands of dollars for this, for some of that money, and how to do this equitably and on demand versus expanding on demand versus more frequent fixed or circulators. I don't know the answers, but I think there's increasing interest because of density and so forth. It was discussed at the chamber meeting this morning. So this idea of walk and chew gum, I think, is the analogy I use.
Well, I liked your idea, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm sorry. Because they're focused on the plan.
Right.
And they want to get the plan done.
Okay. Now, the one thing I heard just yesterday, the day before, that the responsibility for micro transit is shifting to Steve Cover and the parking division, as opposed to Nick and the engineering. I think that's an interesting concept.
Well, it might move things forward then.
Right, right. So to be continued, there's increasing discussion. Frankly, I'm lobbying hard for this as an economic driver as well as quality of life.
Can I add? No, you've been trying to raise it.
Well, so what is being proposed to be changed? There's 2 different things. A comp plan states the rules. A transportation master plan is how we implement the rules. And both of those were updated in the last 10, 15 years. So are they gonna update the Sarasota in Motion master plan for implementing the transportation chapter, or are they, what needs to be changed in the comprehensive plan?
As I understand the comprehensive plan, there's a requirement that it be updated every 10 years.
Okay.
That it
So they
was
do a review. So this is the review.
a review, update, whatever you want to call it. I think implicit on what was said is a Sarasota in Motion transportation plan was 6 years or so ago. And I imagine they'll probably tweak that a little bit.
There was the fellow who mentioned education, which I thought was interesting too, because I think we do need, obviously with roundabouts, we need education because we keep hitting one another.
Okay. And again, I keep going back on this micro transit thing is as an economic driver, as a quality of life driver, and as a branding driver, right? One, whether you agree with me or not, I think our economic times are going to get tougher before they get better. And we've got 122 restaurants downtown, just to, throw that out there in other parts of the area. So if there was ever a time to, look at the success the Bay Runner had, and you think back how controversial it was 5 years or so ago in its successes. So, to be continued, but
Makes sense if it goes to the parking, because that alleviates the parking issue.
right. And then we know the downtown merchants are concerned about losing parking in the main streetscape. So if you look at this holistically, the idea of integrating, sensible parking, micro mobility,
Well, I
safety.
know it's a very attractive idea, but my concern is mass transit also, because mass transit will get people out of cars and it will reduce traffic congestion. It will mitigate the parking problem and eliminate greenhouse gases. So I'm focused on mass transit. I like that, but this is attractive from a personal point of view. I think it has a lot of convenience attached to it.
And again, I'm not hung up on point to point. If a circulator, which is or more frequent headways on existing bus lines, I don't know the answer, but I know that somewhere in this, and it's going to be a smorgasbord, potentially that you're doing a little bit here, a little bit there. But let's try something. I mean, let's try.
People would get on an iRide that won't get on a city bus.
Well, of course, but you're not moving masses of people either.
Well, no,
with
but the
iRide.
thing is that you would be eliminating parking downtown if I was here.
Yep. Okay. All right. Zoning, Saravella, Peter Blanton, are you, or Patrick M. What, talk to us about Saravella.
The bottom line is, after you're working with the developer, which relates to the good comments we heard earlier in this meeting, which is get a hold of the developer and get the issues on the table ASAP, so the developer has a chance to respond. And ultimately, we had leverage though, because you couldn't get an alley without a public benefit. And that leverage led us to a planning board decline of their current site plan. And the developer came back to us and gave us pretty much everything we wanted, which is 20 feet, big trees on 25-foot centers, moving of the loading dock, and an increase in attainable housing. So that was a terrific outcome. The item on the agenda for the council meeting was probably going to last about 4 hours and ended up lasting about 10 minutes because we worked with the developer ahead of time and got a good outcome. That's it.
That's probably, I think, one of our biggest wins that we've had.
It's not perfect.
Yeah,
But thanks to
can I just
Patrick
add
and
that
Peter for your role on this. On the Hyatt redevelopment, Lucia, we kind of touched on that. 1260 Palm, I think everybody knows. The commission went 5-0 or 4, I can't remember. Not
4-1.
Well, yeah, and they have 30 days to appeal, which is up in about a week. So I'm not aware of an appeal at this point, but I would not be surprised. On the Miramar, that went 5-0 to move ahead with that. DSCA took no position on that. That's complicated and what the right thing to do. Boulevard and the Arts and Tents, we talked about. Bay Park Conservancy, Bob, anything?
Well, I mean, I think you can see what's happening. I mean, they are definitely making inroads on both the seawall, like for instance, the inlet that was there had been there for 100 years. It's all flat now. It's almost all built all along the south side of the canal, and the construction of the new parking lot is there. Supposedly, there's going to be no loss in parking when they're done. It's just that they're doing parallel parking with one lane, or not parallel parking. They're doing diagonal parking, but with only one way in one direction. So it eliminates a lot of the inner space that they're then going to be putting that into the new boardwalk that goes along in front of the whole street there. So that's gonna be very nice.
CCNA is on Saturday. I will be there. If anybody has any burning things that you would suggest that I bring forward, I get 2 or 3 minutes. But if there are any issues, comments, whatever. Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know if it's a CCNA, but I do know from your attending the talk of the town at Oakville, discussion about stormwater management going from the county to the city. And having looked at especially these landscape plans, I see a lot of the landscape plans, especially for the trees that are in the right of way or trees adjacent to the right of way, sidewalks, using mulch instead of grass. And as we've seen in the last year, the mulch just gets washed into the storm drains and then clogs up the storm drains. And so that may be a question that which department is responsible for deciding that. If the services is saying, oh yeah, mulch is good, and then the other groups have to maintain and clean up after that, and it's not good. So I think that's a
I can tell you at the chamber meeting this morning, Commissioner Jen was the guest, and she made, I know she had to leave, about stormwater responsibility. Stormwater is a appropriate and growing and area of concern. So I get your point. Rosemary District Association, I really don't have anything. I can tell you it appears they have stopped doing their newsletter for, I think it's been 9 months, a year, and it seems like the direction, I'm on the board, but I'm not a decision maker. So it appears they want to rely on social media to some extent, but I don't know what we have a Rosemary section in our newsletter. I don't know what we do with this, and I'm just being a messenger here. Platinum Associate News, Jamie, what do
We have 2 in person. I believe we do have 1 gold member that may still be online. And since Tony asked to go first, we'll let Fred go first. Alderman Oak.
Thank you, Jamie. Fred Grady, Alderman Oaks, and many of you are on our email blast. A quest for community service. I see some of you already signed up for John McCarthy, Wednesday, June 18th. John, as you know, is a noted historian, citizen of the year, Kona, things like that, Selby and Spanish Point. So come on out. I'm going to be brochures here. The archaeology of Sarasota is a most interesting topic. You might not know that Hudson Avenue was the original road to Siesta. John McCarthy knows stuff like that. Anyway, that's that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. And then, Tony, you're ready.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, hi, I'm Tony Britt. I'm with the Brookie Yacht Club. I'm the Vice Commodore, soon to be the Commodore. And I'm here today with Dee Dee Moore, who's our marketing chair, and also a soon-to-be Board of Governors governor. So I just want to give the group a real quick update. First off, thanks for always having us here and allowing us to give an update. We had a fantastic Planning Commission meeting on May the 14th, and we're very pleased to have received a 5-0 unanimous vote in support of our project. So that's moving ahead nicely. We also had a great opportunity to talk about any resident concerns, which largely involved lighting, noise, et cetera, and many of the things that you would expect, given that we tend to be the donut hole in the donut on Bird Key. So it was a great opportunity to kind of address those and just to let our residents in the community know what actions we plan to take to ensure that we are very good neighbors. As such, we also have tremendous support from the HOA, which is great. And in fact, the HOA president, Al Kessler, came and spoke in support of our application to the Planning Commission, which was quite nice. Our next step is July 7th. We're before the City Commissioners, and we hope as well to have success with them. And then we just simply proceed. Our rebuild is going well. I think last time I was here, I mentioned that we had a bit of a nuclear bomb in terms of costing. We've managed to get that down to not so bad. It's gotten a lot better. We've taken about $4 million out of their initial estimate, which is a real plus without compromising the integrity of our design. And right now, things look as if we will be in a position to start rebuilding perhaps in early September. So we're looking forward to that. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and come on out and have a drink anytime. It's a great view.
Get the shovels ready. Okay, all right, okay, all right. Jamie?
One more member online. It's Nia McGill of Balganic. I can get if she wants to speak.
Hi, my name is Nia. I'm with Balganic.
Yeah,
That's okay. I get that more often than not. I'm almost about to just go with that instead. But we do construction defect and insurance litigation. We were members a while ago. I've been in this position with this company for a couple of years now and decided to renew to kind of see how I can help, how I can be more involved in the community, and also see how I can help people as far as record keeping, documenting, and keeping up with the maintenance of the condos to make sure that's something to keep the city beautiful. We are currently planning to have a before, during, and after the storm presentation for everyone in the group at Michael's on East. So once I get more details on that, I'll definitely share. And I'm super glad to be able to sit in and see all the involvement in this association. And if I can be a resource or any help, just let me know. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just say, good. Feel free to reach out to me, and then we can put it on our website too for so you can get that information out.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, Bob, I think you can turn the sound off on that. Question. Are there any comments from member reps on Zoom or here in person? Jim, you have anything or?
Well, you mentioned our cameras. We're installing 19 new cameras. That's currently being done. They're saying another week. They have some outside work, so the rain, no doubt, will affect that. And once they're finished, then the cameras have to be tested, so they'll work together. We had a very good meeting with Officer Kennedy and Lake from the police department, and we expect that we will sign up immediately with them to be able to view the perimeter of our building, the garage, and we think that's a very good thing. One interesting little note, I tried to send off a note to the police chief saying what a great job these two guys did. And they're very protective of the police chief. It's hard to send a note.
He's not easy. I know a way.
Oh, okay. So once that's in place, we are open to a discussion about this articulating rule thing, whether the mark is the best building or it's 1350 or the rule. High-tech security works. little big brother, but that kind of policing is cost effective, a lot less expensive than having battalions of police. So that's our future, and we're committed to it and very impressed with our meetings with the police. Look forward to aligning that whole system.
Great, thank you, Jim. Any other member reps? I
David,
can't
this
believe
is,
this, but it is 5:31, so we're one minute late. Our next meeting will be July 9th. We moved that from the 2nd because of the way the 4th falls. I won't be here. Jamie is gonna do a great job on that. And again, Jennifer Jorgensen will be the guest speaker. And maybe, how did this format work, of a conversation kind of thing, or in?
Well, I liked it, but we need more people involved.
Okay.
Not just you.
Okay.
I mean, you ask good questions, I'm not.
Well, some of the questions were pre-canned, but trust me, please have at it. Okay.
I think it was a good idea, though, to put out a note to the member reps to send in questions ahead, and then you can submit those before.
Okay, with nothing further, let's consider ourselves adjourned. Thanks, everybody.